How do I do it all? The Brezza gives me the power.
Yes, RCB have done it. RCB have made it 2 out of 2. They've beaten the defending champions and they've come and won at a ground that they haven't in a generation. What does this mean for Rajat Patidar's side? Could this be the year? Because not only have they beaten CSK at the Chepauk, they've humbled them. In the end, the margin of defeat for Chennai, 50 runs. Could have been more in a game dominated, it's fair to say, by the Royal Challengers Bengaluru. We unpack it all on Maruti Suzuki Arena presents ESPN Cricket for Timeout in the company of Nick Knight, Cheteshwar Pujara, Matt Roller. I think a number of us saw this coming, even though we were trying to balance the panel out at half-time. But how impressive a performance is this, Puji, for a team that has to have some mental scars of playing at Chepauk to have this kind of performance? RCB?
Well, RCB will be really pleased with the way they've played today and with the way they've started this season, because they look like a different side and they've showed that with the performance today, because the way they batted, at one point it felt like it wasn't enough. I mean, it could have been, CSK could have chased that total down, but in the second innings I felt the pitch was slightly on the slower side. It offered a bit more turn, so it felt like CSK was batting on a different surface, whereas RCB batted when the surface was slightly better to bat on. But the way RCB batted, the way they bowled in the second innings, it was a clinical performance from them.
If you take away the track record, Nick Knight, and if you saw one of these teams would be up for this out of the two, you'd assume it's CSK, but it looked like RCB were really up for this. CSK just weren't.
I thought that was a really big score. I thought that the way they played and the way they played with such intent and put CSK under pressure straight away, right at the start of the game. I mean, you asked us all, didn't you, at half-time, what do you thought? I said RCB. I just felt they were so far ahead of the game. And then you question why. Well, A, the brilliance of some of their batting. I mean, they were aided and abetted, let's be honest, by CSK in general. You know, they'll reflect back on some ill-discipline that cost them 20, 30 runs. And then you start putting that to 160 instead of 190, and then it's a slightly different concept in the run chase. That was hugely impressive. I'm not going to sit here, by the way, and start saying they're going to win the competition. It's only 2 games in, because I still think there are areas of concern there. But as you rightly say, KKR first game, Chepauk second game, you know, their challenge is the same as it always has been.
Yep.
How are they going to go at home?
Yep.
Well, they're in pretty good shape to show us all.
Well, you're a writer as well as an analyst, so why don't you pick the best words that describe RCB today?
Intent, I think. I think the power plays were huge. If you compare the scores, RCB were 56 for 1 off their first 6 overs. Chennai 30 for 3, and I think in both cases, I think there was an element of it. You know, I think RCB's intent in both cases was massive. I think Salt puts bowlers under pressure straight away and made it really hard for Chennai to sort of settle into any plans or any kind of length. And on the flip side, you saw RCB completely stick to a plan in the power play. There was a pitch map that came up of what their seamers did in the power play, and it was extraordinary just how every single ball was between 6 metre length and 10 metre length. So it was all in that sort of hard length area that you talk about. You know, nothing hurt, no full tosses, nothing loose, no Yorker attempts, nothing like that. Just smashing the pitch hard, hitting that sort of top of stumps length that proved really, really difficult. And Josh Hazlewood, I thought, absolutely epitomised that.
So extend on that point, Puji, because you said it looked like the two teams played on 2 different pitches. Now, how much of that is down to just RCB being far better planned for CSK than vice versa?
I think so. And when you have such a big total on the board and when you lose a couple of early wickets within the power play, then there's a lot of pressure on the batters. And we saw that there are times where CSK can make a comeback, but this wasn't the case. And there's a lot to learn for CSK, because I've been part of that franchise, and if you are a CSK fan, you will be really disappointed today. It's not how you lose. I mean, you tend to lose a game, but the way they've lost this game, which will put a lot of dents in the dressing room.
What about the batting, that middle order that we thought? What happens on a day when Gaikwad doesn't get runs, on a day when Rachin doesn't get runs? It's early days and they're not a franchise to panic, you know that well. But amongst all the CSK batting lineups you've seen, would you be more concerned about this batting lineup outside of the 2 names I've mentioned?
Yeah, there is a lot of concern, because their middle order will have to click at some point. They will have to start scoring runs quickly, and they rely heavily on their middle order. Yes, I know that their top order is their strength, But when they don't perform well, that's the time where their middle order has to step up, and it doesn't look like they are completely ready for it. It looks like they will need some better surfaces to get back into the form, and then when they start playing at home again, then they'll be able to perform well.
Yeah.
But they will need better surfaces to start performing.
If I'm honest, and we will all have done it, the IPL is upon us, we're looking at the sides, Chennai, how they're going to line up, we're looking at the overseas, we're looking at the auction, we're going to see who we think, and we'll all do it, we'll write our top order. In my top order, I had Devon Conway. I'm surprised that he's not going to play some...
Rachin's played well,
but
hasn't
I'm going
he?
to play both of them.
And then who do you...
I'm going to leave out Sam
Curran has to make way.
Because I just feel that
need more-
Gaikwad and Conway at the top is tried and tested.
Yeah.
And that's how I just went. I mean, I'm not saying it's right by any means, but
I like your point,
but
because
when you look at it,
this team can do with a little more international quality, a little more that sort of quality.
I mean, Devon Conway, he's got a terrific record. He's
Interesting.
CSK through and through. I mean, I would, that's the way I thought they would go.
And then Rachin can bat at number 3?
Rachin can bat at number 3.
More than capable.
More than capable.
Yeah.
And then you work down from there. The only thing with that is it means Dhoni's probably going to have to bat 7, which he's sometimes reluctant to do. He wants to bat a little lower than that. But he's just got 30 off 16, brilliant stumping. If I was, I'd encourage that to get him to number 7. And then you work it round from there. Look, this is just sort of studio chat time, but I don't think Fleming and the management will panic. And this is not panic. This is just what I thought would happen at the start.
Sure. I'm going to come to reviewer questions which cover a lot of these areas. But before I do that, just very quickly, I want Puji to talk about Bhuvi. But just since we're just discussing, it's very unlike CSK, isn't it, Matt, to not have mastered a home game. The surface that we saw them today, the fact that another team has outplanned them, barring MI a long time back when they had that little string of results. They got the better of CSK. I can't remember a team coming here and outplaying CSK. Usually teams win here and they win close.
Yeah, I think the overall record for Chennai at home is something like 71% win percentage, which is by a long way, I think, the best in IPL history. I think the one thing, we've talked about it a little bit this season already, but Chepauk, I think, has changed a little bit in the past few years. Obviously, there was a renovation. There were a few years where it didn't host IPL games in the pandemic. But since then, it has changed a little bit. And I know Fleming's spoken about it a bit as well, in terms of them not always being 100% sure which type of pitch they're going to get. The run rates have generally gone up. I think it's about a run per over higher since it's started hosting games again compared to the period before COVID. I don't know, maybe it did take them by surprise a little bit tonight, because you look at the way they set up with those 3 spinners, for them to have only bowled 9 overs between them, you think maybe it wasn't quite what they had in
Stephen
mind.
Fleming said on the eve of this game, we actually have no say in how the pitches play. I must confess, I found quite surprising.
It is, because at CSK, you can't complain. That's one franchise where they've been preparing the pitches according to their strength.
Yes,
and
there's nothing wrong with that. You should use home advantage.
You should. And if he's saying that they are not getting the pitches, or if they don't have a say, then I'm quite surprised, because I don't think that's the case.
Like today
but what might be happening is they might be expecting something out of the pitch, but because there have been some changes in the pitch, it's not behaving the way they want it to behave.
Right. Okay. Could be as simple as that.
Definitely a little different to what I thought. I mean, we spent the whole half an hour before the game talking about a pitch that was going to be slow, holding a bit, maybe
Please
spin.
don't watch that pre-show again, all of you. Very misguided. Yeah.
Absolute garbage. I mean, what we were talking about was, well, we said we're 1,000 miles away or whatever, 1,000 k's away, but I mean, what actually played out was completely different, wasn't it? I mean, the ball was first. We were watching it on the monitor. The first ball was flying through.
But my question here is, if CSK was in a position where RCB was bowling,
right,
would the result have been different? Because it looked like in the second innings, spinners were getting enough grip, whereas in first innings, it looked like the ball was skidding on a bit more, and that's why they couldn't bowl their spinners.
Which is interesting. So in a way, it was actually a pretty good toss to lose for RCB.
For RCB, yeah.
And there is always the dew factor. We didn't see any dew or any real evidence of dew today.
And there have been some talks where I think Ambati said that they use some clay in the pitch, and when the dew comes in, that's the reason the pitch becomes a bit more sticky rather than the ball skidding on that.
Right.
And I think that's the bigger reason the ball, it was slightly difficult to bat in the second innings.
It's interesting, the point though about how much of a say franchises have in their home pitches? Because I know it's been a talking point with KKR in the past few days. I think Rahane came out after their first game and said they maybe the pitch didn't quite play how they expected it to. And obviously you do have some interesting dynamics there with the grounds being owned and run by the state boards rather than the franchises themselves. I don't know whether it was something that sort of came up in your IPL career, whether it was, whether there were teams that didn't necessarily get the pitches that they were hoping for.
Yeah, it does happen with some of the smaller franchises, but if you speak about MI, CSK, KKR, I don't think that's the case. If you are any other franchise, I can still understand, but it has never happened because those franchises, they make sure that they get what they want, and their strength has been their games when they play at home.
I mean, full credit to RCB. They've played the game ahead in front of them. They've outplayed CSK. I'm going to take a lot of questions here. But just finally, Bhuvaneshwar Kumar on his comeback on his RCB debut or his returning. He's played for RCB before, hasn't he, Bhuvi? Have I got that right? Anyway,
I think so. Long back.
At least, long time back. But here we go. RCB, new franchise for Bhuvi. He looked terrific, didn't he?
He did. And he swung the ball in the first over. Second over, he wasn't as effective as he was in the first over. But it looked like he's getting his rhythm back after being injured for a bit, and then when he's playing again, it looked like he's gaining his confidence, and he will be quite effective. It will be important to see how he bowls when RCB plays in their home conditions.
Okay.
That's where Bhuvi will be really tested.
Right, lots of questions, and they're really flooding on. I know RCB CSK have a huge fan following, so let's get straight into it. Might I just tell all of you, you'll save me a lot of trouble if you just get rid of Raidu in your comments. Right, there's a lot of that. And I must tell RCB fans who are giving Ambati a hard time here that he's overworking it on Star today, and he has said from the first ball or so that CSK are not going to win this with the way RCB is set up, the way the pitch is playing. So he's called the game in front of him, and he will be back at some point. I'm not batting for Raidu. Trust me, I don't need to. Nobody needs to. All right, excellent win for RCB, says Kabir Bhatia. How about the captaincy? Patidar, very good tactically, leading from the front. That's good. Patidar, the captain today, had an excellent day with bat and in the field.
And he was very composed.
Yeah.
Look, he was very clear with his game plan. I know there was enough runs on the board, but at the same time, you still need to make the right changes. And he made the right changes. And overall, he's developing as a captain. Again, it's another franchise where it's not easy to lead the team. There is a lot of expectation. RCB hasn't performed well in the past. And the way he's batting, I think it will also help him being a better leader. Yeah,
absolutely. Gokul, I hope we've answered your question whether the pitch slowed down in the second half. Puji certainly felt like it behaved differently, and we've given our potential reasons as to why. Devang Sharma, echoing Nick Knight's point, CSK won't panic. They're not that team, but Tripathi and Deepak Hooda in the middle are concerned. They have to open with Conway, play Rachin at 3, otherwise this batting looks weak. It's not about panic, but it's about being smart as well. You don't want too many games before you make the change.
As a coach, that's the balance you have to strike as a coach, as a captain, as a management team. That you don't want to. The last thing you want is to appear like you are panicking. You're only 2 games in out of 14, and if you suddenly make a major change at the top of it can look like you're panicking. Yeah. But I don't think it will with Conway because there's so much history in the fact that he's done it so well in the past.
Very good. Kulatumani, I'm glad you brought this up. We were going to go to it anyway, but Kulatumani asks, seriously, in what universe does Ash come ahead of MSD? If that's the way CSK are going, in my opinion, then MSD doesn't play in the side, surely just for his wicket-keeping skills. What does the panel think? I mean, I've got to say, he surely needs to be walking in ahead of Ashwin. What do you guys think?
I mean, I just said, didn't we? But I mean, when I sort of looked at my rejig side, it means he's probably going to have to bat at number 7. No problem with that at all. And that's to their benefit.
The only reason I see is that MS might be having a little bit of niggle with his knee. And he's not able to sprint, and that's the reason he's just saving himself to just come out and then play shots, rather than if he's running too much, he may not be fit for the next few games.
Is that
just hit the sixes like he's just
I mean, he could play 8-9 balls and hit one in the air. If he's ended up playing 16 balls and batting, what, 4 overs almost, or 3.5 overs?
I guess to sort of try and work out what the reasons might be, and just to build on what Pujara said, if he's not fully trusting his body, if there is that fear, then maybe this is the game where, you consider the situation when they lost the 6th wicket, the game was pretty much already done. They were probably sub 1% on our forecaster by that stage. Maybe that's not the game where you want to spend 7 overs at the crease. But yeah, I agree with these
I'm
guys.
just saying, are the rules different when it comes to Dhoni and CSK? Because this was any other franchise. You're still going to try and go as hard and try and get as close. If you say at the 16th over mark that we'll just try and reduce the margin of defeat, and yeah, they have done that. They got about 1 for 40 in the last 5, so what could have been an 80-90 run defeat is a 50-run defeat. But I can see the frustration of a number of CSK fans here that Raidu said this before the game, that, you know, the brand Dhoni at times works against what CSK want to do. I don't know if it's not entirely Dhoni's fault, but he should at least be walking out ahead and trying to kind of make something happen in the game.
Just to add to that, sorry to go away from that, I thought Dubé, why is Dubé not batting higher?
Yeah, sure, that's there too.
I was stunned when Dubé didn't come out when Curran came out. I mean, they were so far behind the game at that point. They needed something just to give them some impetus, give them some energy in the run chase, and I felt Dubé was just held back.
But they are, I think, looking at him as a finisher rather than batting top of the order.
Shivam Dubé, but I mean, Sam Curran's the guy in front of him. If it was someone else.
Yeah, I do
Today,
agree
also the matchup was there, right? You had Suyash coming in and whatnot. Dubé surely should have come in ahead.
He should have, but I still feel that CSK, they always think about who are your finishers and they shouldn't be batting up the order, and that's the strategy they have always been having. If it's an important game, you need to be a little more flexible. I do agree with you. He should be batting up the order, and he has the potential. If he bats more number of balls, I'm sure he can be the difference. So.
Okay, the runes echoing that point on Sam Curran shouldn't be batting ahead of Dubé. Are CSK missing a specialist middle order batter like Raidu, Raina, Rahane? Well, Raina and Rahane batted top 3. But do you sense that in this squad after the new auction, where they spent a lot of money on spin, they haven't got at least a batter of significant batting quality or not just batting ability like they had in the last few seasons?
Well, they are definitely lacking someone in the middle order, but also you need to consider that they are losing wickets in the power play. So there's a bit more pressure on their middle order, whereas if they start playing on better surfaces, their middle order will start clicking, and Deepak Hooda is a quality player. I feel he needs one good innings. He's batting up the order. If he's batting at number 4 or 5, and if he's walking in within the power play, I think that's not an ideal position for him to bat. So he should be walking in when I think it should be between 8 to 10 overs, and that's when his real potential will come out.
Yeah, Hooda felt like a real CSK typical signing, didn't he? As someone who his stock had plummeted a bit because he had a couple of poor years.
I would say there's a long time since Hooda's had a...
Was it IPL 22 or 23?
21, T20, because he got picked for the T20 World Cup in 2022. That's when he had a couple of good innings. I think in Lucknow's first year, he had
KL
some
Rahul
impact.
batted nicely together that year.
But he's obviously tailed off a bit, but I think he's still at that stage in his career where he could have a second coming, and you hope that, you know, given the history of CSK rejuvenating those guys in their sort of, you know, who are slightly closer to the end of their careers than the start, shall we say. It feels like he's as Pujara says, if he gets the opportunity to come in at the right time in the innings, the right entry point, could still work out for him. Okay,
Lawrence is making an interesting observation. Whether Dubé is carrying some kind of injury niggle, he didn't seem fluent in running, and it seemed like Rachin apologized for a quick single. So maybe they're nursing that with Shivam Dubé. If that's the case, then even the RR game won't be easy. I'll come to the next set of games for both teams. How do you think, Ashravani, this CSK batting lineup might fare on flat pitches? So let's bring that in, because you did say it was slightly different surface. Will we need to see perhaps them playing on some of the better batting surfaces to get an idea?
Yeah, I mean, throughout sort of oversimplifying this, you say that in previous discussion they're a batter light, a top quality batter light in the middle. For me, I see Shivam Dubé as that player. Yeah. I know. I take your point. You know, he's a finisher or whatever, but I saw him a couple of months ago smash an England attack all over the place. You know, as a replacement player coming in. If that guy can't do that in this tournament, then I must be seeing things slightly different, which of course I might well be. But for me, Shivam Dubé could be the man just to take this opportunity and boss the middle overs and boss the middle section of that innings and take his game forward and take the team's game forward. If you go Conway, Gaikwad, Ravindra, Hooda, Dubé, Jadeja, Dhoni, I reckon that's a decent lineup.
Jadeja, Ashwin, Dhoni. Sorry. Yeah, send me letters later. Right. This one you can take, Matt. Ayush asking, with the Sam Curran, who's such an exciting prospect and player of the tournament, the T20 World Cup in Australia, have his stocks gone down now?
Well, I mean, in terms of auction value, they clearly have, because he was
Yes.
on a huge seller and he's not anymore. I think clearly Curran has not had the 2.5 years now he would have hoped for since that T20 World Cup. I think his form with the ball, I think that I look back at that T20 World Cup in Australia and think it was almost a perfect storm for him. He was at perfect time in his career. He got this new role bowling at the death, and I think that the dimensions of some of the grounds there and the time of year that tournament was played all worked perfectly for him. It is a little different here. I think if there's a franchise where it's going to work for him, it's probably going to be Chennai, where he's played before. He seems to have at least been backed for the start of the season. We can debate whether or not he should be for Game 3 moving forward, but yeah, I think clearly he's at an interesting point in his career. He's been dropped from the England setup at the moment, and we'll be hoping for a really prolific IPL so he can force his way back in there and prove he should be in there, because I think he's a very, very good all-round cricketer. He's still very young, but yeah, he probably is having a little bit of a blip compared to where he was 2.5 years ago.
All right. Well, a couple of great gems. Yash Jha has been working hard at finding these out. This is CSK's biggest defeat by runs at the Chepauk ever.
Wow.
That's significant. They've never lost by 50 at home in the IPL. That's a great achievement for RCB, especially given their track record at this ground. The last time RCB beat CSK at the Chepauk, would anyone like to guess who was player of the match?
Yeah, we were discussing this. So
Yeah.
It was Anil Kumble.
Kumble was player of the match with the 3-4, and the top scorer was another Karnataka legend,
Rahul Dravid.
India legend.
Yeah.
Rahul Dravid was top scorer. Wow, and it's a lifetime. You weren't even born then in 2000. Matt Roller. All right. Well, thank you very much for sending those questions, comments in. Before we wrap it up, though, let's just spend a couple of quick minutes on how good they were in the first innings. Paddikal's intent, Patidar, even though he was dropped. I guess we have to compliment the fact that Phil Salt's working there. I mean, Tim David's working there. There's so many boxes ticked today, Nick Knight, isn't it?
I felt that they thought the pitch wouldn't perhaps play as well as it did, and so they charged out the power play because they were thinking about trying to get ahead of the rate before the spinners might play havoc in the middle. And Phil Salt is almost the perfect player to lead the charge. Yeah, I mean, he's playing a really pivotal role there, just to energise that top order. Tim David at the end, we talked about that against Sam Curran, Patidar. As much as you guys are right to talk about the tactics and his captaincy, just how much of a lift is that giving the dressing room?
Yes,
Your
100%.
captain is right up there, and he's leading the troops, not just with the bat in hand, but they're getting results. That's the best thing for all the troops underneath.
I love the template of that innings as well. Generally for RCB, you think the top score is only 51 and a team score of 196.
Yeah.
And the whole of the top 7, in some ways, there were obviously a few lower scores, but everyone got to double figures, I think, at least. It was almost that sort of relay race type innings where Salt started them off, he hands the baton on to Padikal, so on and so forth.
And I think it's the intent. They are very clear. It feels like they are going the SRH way, where they want to go hard, even if they keep losing wickets, they don't mind. But either there will be times where either they will be bowled out for 140, but when they get going, they will put up a massive total. And not to forget that their next game is home game, so that's where
bring on the Chinnaswamy Stadium.
Someone we haven't mentioned, Andy Flower. I don't think we've mentioned much. He's a damn good coach. But
Very good.
I mean, doesn't need me to say that, but he's a damn good coach.
Yeah, he
and he's a pretty smart operator, and he's planned well. You can see there's a lot of planning gone into those
And
performances.
another guy who will be very happy is his brother, Grant Flower, because when I was playing for Sussex, he has been the batting coach, and he has always been talking about RCB. We always have this battle where he says that RCB is going to do well, and as much as I wanted him to be happy, results haven't been going his way.
Okay,
So,
well, I'm
Grant,
sure
you can be happy for the first couple of games,
I'm sure you'll be.
and I hope that RCB has a better season.
Well, Grant, if you're watching, there you go.
Yeah.
Puji sent you a message. Andy, if you're watching, you got to mention here. And I still want a couple of tickets for one of the games. I'm saying it on air. I'm saying it on air. Anyway, right. Let's do a rapid fire review of RCB. What a game! I mean, RCB and CSK this game. Gentlemen, you know how this works. Quick fire review. Quick fire responses to questions that summarize the game. Nick, what should please Bengaluru the most about today's batting display?
Intent.
Puji, how differently would the game have panned out if Patidar wasn't dropped?
I think CSK might have won that game.
Difference of 190 to almost
Yeah,
160.
160 odd, yeah.
All right. Matt, do Chennai need to look beyond Sam Curran given his slowish start to the season?
I think too early for it, for me. I think only 2 games. I think they'll keep backing him for a little bit, but down the line maybe.
Puji, back to you. What made the Bengaluru bowlers much tougher to score against today?
I thought the lengths were much better in the power play, and then the spinners, they spun the ball. Whereas when CSK spinners were bowling, they didn't spin the ball.
All right, Nick, back-to-back struggles for that middle order at Chepauk. Cause for concern for Chennai, and how would you remedy their batting concerns?
Bring in Devon Conway. I don't want it to sound like panic because I'd have done it at the start. So I'm not talking perhaps in response to what has happened. Then just drop everyone down one. I would open with Gaikwad as well.
All right, Matt, 2 wins in 2, intent with the bat. Big jinx overturn with a win at the Chepauk. Is this RCB's season?
It could be. They look really good. I think that's a very impressive start from 2 from 2.
Is your friend Freddie Wild still over there at RCB?
He's involved.
We all have friends in the dugouts, don't we? Andy Flower got a mention, Grant got a mention. Anyway, brilliant. You can get tickets next time. Thank you very much to Nick Knight, Cheteshwar Pujara, Matt Roller. Nick, I wish you well. You're going to be off back on the caravan for the World Feed.
Yes, back tomorrow night. Where am I? Ahmedabad.
And yes, GTMI, that's the ground you call that iconic Rinku innings.
Rinku.
Yeah. Just go out there and give us a
I'll have to
thriller.
give my jacket back as I leave. Don't worry.
You're coming back anyway for a few more days with us. We look forward to that.
The poor
We'll make
stylist
sure.
is going to have to try and look after me again as I walk in looking scruffy and untidy, but she'll try and smart me.
Oh, you can't do any worse than his jacket. Yeah, you're all done for the day. And on that note, thank you, Matt. Puji, see you tomorrow. It's been an absolute pleasure taking your comments and questions and making you part of the conversation. We'll look forward to doing that tomorrow as well with Hardik Pandya finally ready to take the field in the IPL 2025. And who else but the Gujarat Titans in front of him? Build up to GT versus MI. Just before the toss on Maruti Suzuki Arena presents ESPN Cricket for Timeout for tonight. It's going to be RCB fans that'll sleep very well on Friday night. See you tomorrow.
How do I do it all? The Brezza gives me the power.